Hey guys, it's Gia.
And Natalie, ready to talk about ecosystems and energy?
Organisms can interact in different ways and show the importance of diversity, which represent the trophic structure, which is the different feeding relationships in an ecosystem. In a food chain like this one, it is a transfer of food energy up the trophic levels from its source in autotrophs through herbivores to carnivores. The arrow traces the energy and nutrients through the trophic levels of an ecosystem.
Food chains are linked into food webs. Arrows point from one organism to the organism that it is eaten by. The base is a primary producer, which are autotrophs. Primary consumers, usually herbivores, eat the primary producers. Secondary consumers eat them, who are eaten by the tertiary consumers. The top organisms are apex consumers. Each category is a trophic level. Not shown in this image are decomposers. Fungi and bacteria are an example, and they use chemical energy and dead matter or waste to fuel metabolic processes and release nutrients that are recycled and can be used.
This pyramid shows the transfer of energy. Energy is transferred between trophic levels when one eats the other, but the amount of energy gained is actually inefficient. Energy is stored as biomass, which is transferred to the next level. This is stated in the 10% rule, which is a rule of thumb that states 10% of energy stored as biomass gets transferred up the next trophic level. Looking at this pyramid, you can see that 10% of the energy at 20,000 kcal gets transferred. Then 2,000, 200, 20, and 2. You could also see that the energy is also released mainly as heat and cellular respiration. Also, energy is not used because it is excreted through waste.
This is a biomass pyramid, which represents the total dry mass of all organisms in one trophic level. They usually narrow to a point like a pyramid because energy transfers at the top are very inefficient. This inverted biomass pyramid applies to aquatic ecosystems because the producer, phytoplankton, never have a large population size. They grow, reproduce, then are consumed. They replace their biomass at a rapid rate so they can support a biomass of zooplankton larger than their own.
Energy stored in organisms can be passed to others. Heterotrophs rely on the primary producers for energy. Energy flows in as sunlight and out as heat. Producers are important because biomass is key to understand how energy moves through the ecosystem and what organisms reside there. If they are removed, the ecosystem will fail because there will be no energy.
Hey, what is primary productivity?
Productivity is the rate at which energy is added to organisms to form biomass. There are two types: gross primary productivity, known as GPP, and net primary productivity, also known as NPP.
GPP is the rate at which solar energy is captured in photosynthesis. Producers use this energy for metabolism and cellular respiration. In simplest terms, it is the total primary production.
NPP is GPP minus the rate of energy lost through autotrophic respiration, meaning metabolism and maintenance. This is essential because it shows the amount of chemical energy stored that will be available to the consumers of the ecosystem. In simplest terms, it is the new biomass added. Plants capture about 1% of the solar energy and it becomes NPP. NPP varies among ecosystems and depends on many factors, including solar energy, temperature, and moisture levels.
What's up, bio lovers?
And we're back for part 2 of ecosystems and energy. Now we'll be talking about biogeochemical cycles.
Hey Gia, what is a biogeochemical cycle?
Chemical cycle that involves biotic and abiotic factors. Just to remind you, an abiotic factor is a non-living chemical and physical part of the environment that affects the ecosystem, like moisture. This dog is a biotic factor, which are living components affecting an ecosystem. With two categories of global and local cycles, we will be discussing the global ones. The carbon cycle is a biogeochemical cycle with atmospheric carbon and carbonate. Plants through photosynthesis convert the atmospheric carbon into organic form so that other organisms can use it. Each colored arrow is a different path that carbon can take. Photosynthesis in plants and phytoplankton removes carbon from the atmosphere. Carbon is naturally dissolved in water and extracted up an oil rig. Carbon is added back into the atmosphere from combustion. At the blue arrows, phytoplankton that consumed carbon is consumed by other fish. Once they die, the carbon through fossilization turns into limestone. At the green arrows, carbon when absorbed by the tree is consumed by organisms like the dog. Still following the green arrows, the carbon from the tree and dog through fossilization is buried in the ground and packed together in coal. The tree and dog that consumed carbon dies and passes to the decomposer. The decomposer worm recycles the carbon and material to be useful for other organisms. Overall, the amount of carbon taken in photosynthesis is balanced out through respiration, where carbon is added back into the air in atmospheric form. You can see that the reservoir is the atmosphere, which is where most of the carbon is held.
The nitrogen cycle involves the transformation of nitrogen gas into different nitrogen-containing compounds through natural processes in the soil or air. Let's get started. One way nitrogen is cycled is by nitrogen fixing, where N2 transforms into ammonia by nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Ammonia turns into nitrifying bacteria, which then transforms into nitrate. Nitrate can then undergo one of two processes. The nitrate can be assimilated into the roots of plants or other living organisms. Animals then consume the plants, and eventually what they ate will be lost through excretion either by urine or feces and turned back into ammonia. Additionally, the animals will sadly have to die, creating dead decaying matter for decomposers to recycle back into the cycle via ammonification. Here the process continues as ammonia turns into nitrate. This is the first example you can observe of how nitrogen compounds are continuously cycled through the cycle. The other process nitrate can undergo is denitrification, where nitrate transforms back into atmospheric nitrogen via denitrifying bacteria. Whoa, wait, did anybody hear that?
Whoa, what was that?
Well, Gia, lightning is also a part of the nitrogen cycle because it converts nitrogen gas in the atmosphere into nitrate through the process of atmospheric nitrogen fixation. This nitrate can then undergo assimilation or denitrification. The final way nitrogen gas is cycled through is by another way of nitrogen fixing, where N2 transforms into ammonia by cyanobacteria. The ammonia then undergoes nitrification to transform directly into nitrate, which is a very important part of the nitrogen cycle if you haven't figured it out already. Through these various ways, nitrogen compounds are cycled through ecosystems. Also, key processes to note about the nitrogen cycle are nitrogen fixing, nitrification, denitrification, and assimilation. You should also know the main reservoir of the nitrogen cycle is the atmosphere. That's all about the processes of the carbon and nitrogen cycle, but now let's dig into their importance. Now, both of these cycles are very important to everyone. Basically, the nitrogen cycle is an important part of ATP,
while the carbon cycle is a fundamental building block of life.
Nitrogen is a key part of amino acids and nucleic acids,
while carbon serves as the framework for organic molecules. Just like hammers, both cycles are crucial to make macromolecules and important to sustain life. In the carbon cycle, plants and animals control most of the key steps. It is important because of the reasons mentioned before and because carbon dioxide controls water vapor quantities in the atmosphere. Without carbon, photosynthesis cannot occur to produce oxygen for us to breathe. Today, this cycle is changing. We are putting more carbon into the air through burning of fossil fuels and deforestation.
The nitrogen cycle is crucial because it helps decompose plant and animal matter. It is important because it contains nitrogen, which is the most abundant element in Earth's atmosphere. Also, nitrogen is needed for many cellular processes like making chlorophyll and photosynthesis. Today, this cycle is changing. More nitrogen is being sent into the air through the burning of fossil fuels, power plants, and other combustion processes.